Good morning, everyone. It's so good to see people's names popping up and to know that we are together this morning. What draws us here today? What brings us into the presence of each other here in this virtual space? We come here, of course, for many reasons. For the warmth of human community, for a few moments to pause, to slow the hurry of our days. We come to learn from one another what we need to live well and truly. We come to celebrate this life with all of its troubles and all of its beauty, to be reminded of our humanity and the unending power of love. We are here to be reminded what the power of our hands and our hearts can bring about when we act in the world. Can I get an amen, friends? On this day, we have awakened, exhaling, ready for what comes next. We are here in both gratitude and grief. Grief for all that has been lost, gratitude for what can be healed, and what goodness can be created. Let us pause now and ready ourselves for this next journey. It is good to be together today. As Nancy lights the chalice, I invite you to say the words for lighting the chalice that are in the chat. We light this chalice in deep respect for the mystery and holiness of life, in honor and gratitude for those who have gone before, with love and compassion for those who dwell among us, and with hope and faith for the generations to come.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Slocum. I am the Director of Religious Exploration for Children and Youth here at Tahoma UU Congregation, and it is a great day to be here. It is sunny and it is beautiful, and I'm very happy today. This is our time when we have our time for all ages and invite children typically to come up and join us at the front of the sanctuary. So gather around, kids, for our time for all ages. And while you're gathering around, I need to correct a couple of announcements that were made this morning. We are having our kids' chapel at 11:30. The Clone Wars watch parties had to be canceled, unfortunately, because Zoom doesn't allow us to stream those videos the way we were hoping to. So we're gonna have some other activities for you, but we had to cancel those. I also want to make an announcement about our pageant in December. For those of you who have been here before, we every year do what we call our pageant without preparation. Now, I've been here for 3 years, so I've been involved 3 times, and I question that name because it feels like I always have lots to do getting ready for the pageant without preparation. There's, costumes and there's props and everything, and I have to take care of those with help from others. But the no preparation part is that when people show up here in our church on Sunday morning, they can say, I'd like to be in today's pageant, and they get assigned a role, and we have it happen without any rehearsals or anything. So with our current online situation, that's a little trickier because people won't be showing up here in person on Sunday morning saying, I want to be involved. So we will be getting information out shortly about how you can be involved. And I am hoping that everybody who wants to be part of our pageant can sign up for it. It will be on December 20th. We will have a rehearsal beforehand, just so we all make sure our blocking is right on Zoom. And we're looking, families can participate together or people can participate alone. So watch for that. And this year's pageant will be the story of the birth of Jesus. To infinity and beyond. When Reverend Linda told me that was the topic of today's service, I might have found myself thinking about infinity and what is beyond it. Do you know what infinity is? As many of you know, if you know me, you know one of the first things I will do is go to the dictionary and look up the word and find the definition. And the first one that I read when I typed in infinity, it said, the state of being infinite. Well, great. If you don't know what infinity is, there's a good chance you don't know what infinite means either. So that wasn't much help. But then I looked at the second definition, and it talks about how it's a number that is greater than any number that you can even think of. So think about the biggest, greatest number that you can think of. Count to that highest number, or think about counting to that highest number, and then going beyond that. What is bigger than the most you can have? That's infinity, more than what is even feels possible. So when Reverend Linda told me about today's topic being to infinity and beyond, I might have pondered, ponder means to think about, I might have thought about what's beyond the most that you can have. And I might have pondered the phrase infinite possibilities, thinking about things that might be possible, how many different ways things can happen, infinite possibilities. I like to think about infinite possibilities when I think about all the ways that all of the people on earth can work to make the world better for everybody. The possibilities, I think, are infinite. They're endless, infinite possibilities. So I could have thought of that when Reverend Linda told me that the topic was to infinity and beyond, but that wasn't what came to mind. What the very first thing I thought of was none other than Buzz Lightyear. Can y'all see Buzz Lightyear here? Do y'all know Buzz? Yeah, Buzz Lightyear. Buzz Lightyear, oops, I lost my script here. Buzz Lightyear is a character in a movie called Toy Story. There's now Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3 and even Toy Story 4. But I first met Buzz Lightyear when I saw Toy Story for the first time about 25 years ago. And I just watched it again yesterday, just because we were talking about Buzz Lightyear. So if there are any of you out there who have not seen the movie, I highly recommend it. It's just delightful. The majority of the movie's characters are toys belonging to a little boy named Andy. And they come to life when nobody's around, when there's no people around. Mr. Potato Head, a slinky dog, a remote control car, an Etch-a-Sketch, those little green plastic soldiers. The main character is a toy named Woody. And Woody is a stuffed doll who is a sheriff. And he's got his cowboy hat and his boots and his sheriff's badge. And he is Andy's favorite toy. He's the one who sleeps with Andy at night and the one that Andy takes with him on outings. He's a constant companion. But when Andy isn't around, Woody is the leader of all the toys in Andy's bedroom. Everybody loves Woody. Well, as the movie opens up, Andy has a birthday and he gets a new toy. He gets Buzz Lightyear. Buzz is a space ranger, a toy based on a television character, and Andy loves his new toy, and Buzz is added to Andy's collection of toys. And one of Buzz Lightyear's catchphrases is, "To infinity and beyond." So of course, when Reverend Linda told me the topic of today's sermon was to infinity and beyond, I thought of Buzz. The thing about Buzz, though, is that he doesn't realize he's a toy. He thinks he's an actual space ranger. He's focused on getting back to his command center. He uses his communication device on his arm, thinking he's communicating with the command center when it's really just a decal on his arm. And he doesn't realize that the laser that he has is just a light, just like this one. I've got a laser, right? A laser light. He thinks he's using it to protect himself without realizing it's just a flashing light. And Woody, remember Woody, our sheriff, he is none too happy having Buzz Lightyear join them. Why? Well, frankly, I think he's afraid. He's afraid that Buzz will become Andy's favorite toy and that he, Woody, will be forgotten and ignored. And maybe because of those fears, Woody, who was someone that everybody loved and admired, he didn't treat Buzz very kindly. And Buzz, who was so focused on getting back to his command center, he didn't really want to have anything to do with Woody and the other toys. Woody and Buzz didn't get along very well. Woody was feeling afraid, and Buzz could only think about his own needs and wants. Well, I don't want to tell you the whole story if you haven't seen it yet, but what I will tell you this, Woody and Buzz get into a bit of a difficult situation, a bad situation, a dangerous situation. And there are some pretty tense moments. And because they're not working together, their future looks pretty grim. But because they are in danger, they realize they have to work together. It would be the only way that they could get through their challenges and get back to the life they wanted. They each bring their own unique qualities and skills to the situation. They both contribute to the problem solving, and they support each other to be the very best that they each can be. It's an exciting and a happy ending. Buzz and Woody work together, and they are able to get back to where they want to be. For Buzz and Woody, though, the possibilities were limited until they could set aside their differences. Woody's fears, Buzz's concern only for himself, that separated them and made them totally ineffective in getting out of this dangerous situation. But working together, the possibilities that good things could happen increased significantly. They increased maybe even to infinity and beyond. That is our time for all ages this morning. I will speak to you the words of the song we like to sing as children leave the sanctuary. We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your hearts be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life, we hold you in our love as you go. Be well all.
We pause in the service every week to take time for generosity and to support the life and work of this congregation. I invite you to take a moment to reaffirm your connection. You can donate online, you can donate by text, or you can just feel the satisfaction of your ongoing contributions to our community, to our congregation. We are grateful for all that you bring and all that you give to this community. I invite you to join with me in saying the words to dedicate our gifts to this congregation. We dedicate ourselves and our offering to the work of this congregation, weaving a tapestry we call love. Tapestry of love. How many times have I said this? Weaving a tapestry of love we call community, both within and beyond these walls. So may it be. It has taken me a good portion of the week to figure out what our reading would be today. And I have settled on a fairly lengthy reading, so be prepared for a lot of words. But it speaks so beautifully to our moment that I wanted to share it with you. It is called What to Tell the Children by Rachel Kahn. Tell them that this is the Great Awakening. Tell them that we humans have made some huge mistakes. And that's how we find ourselves in this tenuous place. Teach them that hate is the poison. Teach them that love is the remedy. That it is better to be readied for what comes next, even if the revelation is painful. Tell them that this is the paradigm shift, that the old is collapsing in on itself, that this death rattle is simply a temper tantrum, the last gasp of a dying Goliath. Remind them of how they get wild when they are most tired and then pass out, that this is what it's about, that this is what's happening to a decrepit and ineffective empire. Tell them that everything is not okay, and knowing that is okay. Tell them that pretending that what's unacceptable is fine is what got us to this sick and dysfunctional spot on the timeline. Apologize. Apologize for any prior attempts to teach them denial. Tell them you were blinded by desire for comfortable numbness. Express that you had the best of intentions, that you were working within a broken system where few benefited at the expense of many, that you laid low, kept to the status quo, obediently played your role. But those days are over because now you know better. Tell them that they have no responsibility to follow someone blindly based solely on a title. Teach them to practice discernment. Tell them authority and respect must be earned and are not inherently deserved. Teach them that there are good people and bad people from every background, ethnicity, and belief system, that they must align themselves with kindness, that there is no more time for divisiveness. You tell them that just because something is legal doesn't make it right. You tell them to stand up and fight. Remind them of all the lawful atrocities committed in the sick and twisted history of this violent country. That Rosa Parks righteously broke a law and the world took notice. That Harriet Tubman is our modern day Moses. That women would not be allowed to vote and no one would have proposed another notion if the blessed rebels hadn't taken a stand. Tell them love will win this war, but only if we remember that love is not just one unending cuddle puddle, but fierce as a mother bear protecting her cubs. Tell them that although existence is damaged beyond repair, they must not despair. There is possibility, and we will willingly and willfully open ourselves to new ways of being because the old way is not working, has never worked, and the world deserves better, and we're worth it. Tell them they are not free while another suffers enslavement. Teach them that we are all limbs of one body, and we cannot chop off our own arm without deep suffering. Teach them humility, but also to relearn to trust their intuition, beg their forgiveness for unintentionally misleading them previously. Tell them their gifts are useful. Tell them they are beautiful. Tell them they are the truth. And here ends our reading for today. Here we are, y'all. Here we are. In the middle of October, back when I was charting out sermon titles and descriptions for November, I felt bleak. I tell you, bleak about what I might have to preach about today. Without any clue of what the outcome of the election might be, but deeply invested in what I prayed it would be, how could I put together a title and a description, much less have any idea of what needed to be said? I'm not sure completely why To Infinity and Beyond came to mind, or what it was that made me to type that into the grid on which we keep the information about our worship services, but I put it there. My husband suggested to me this morning, I'll tell you, that I probably need to do another sermon on never give up and never surrender for all of you sci-fi nerds, geeks, whichever out there. Yes, I'll pass along the reading, friends. I shouldn't be reading the chat. Okay, here we go. So I'm not sure why I chose it to infinity or beyond, but I did. And, you know, it might have been that when I went back and looked at what I preached about 4 years ago, the service before the election and the service after the election, and what I've said, and looking at that, remembered what I said, the first thing I said that Sunday after the election, and have said several times periodically through these intervening years. What I said in that sermon was that I reminded us that the work that we're called to do in the world has not changed. It has not changed. That's what I said 4 years ago. It hasn't changed at all. The work that we had to do before the election was the same work we had to do after the election. What we're called to do in the world hasn't changed at all because of the results. And that's true today too. What we are called to do in the world does not change. It is consistent. It is always, always there. It's just the shape of the world around us that changes sometimes. I was scrolling, as I'm sure many of you were, scrolling through the social medias over this week, and I spotted a quip that could well have been the subtitle for my sermon, and that was, "The moral arc of the universe ain't gonna bend itself." Now, this is, I'll tell you, I'll just go into a little bit of geeky history here. I can see, even though I can't see her face, I know Arian is cheering in the background around this. But that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice is a phrase that we know and is often and mostly attributed to Martin Luther King Jr. But it really arises from something that was written by minister Theodore Parker in the middle of the 19th century. It's a longer form, and King used it to great effect, and it continues to be an important piece of wisdom that we need to be carrying with us. And I just want to drop another little piece about Theodore Parker history, as I say, mid-19th century minister. And the other thing that he wrote that was picked up by another famous person, but back in that day, was in one of his speeches given in 1850, he talked about a democracy, quoting here, "of all the people, by all the people, for all the people." You might recognize that as a phrase that was slightly altered and used in the Gettysburg Address, something that we repeat often in our country. Our ancestor, Theodore Parker, was the one who framed that. But back to my text and my sermon for today. Black activist Ashley Nicole Black tweeted yesterday. She said, "When I interviewed leaders from the civil rights movement, a few of them said this: celebrate every win, because after the win will come the backlash, and the backlash will be so bad, it will cause you to have doubt. So celebrate the wins so you can remember what they felt like." So I say to you today, my friends, celebrate today. Celebrate what has come about, what we have done. I know many of us were writing letters to voters. Many of us were text and phone banking. Many of us were taking part in making this election happen, making this result happen. So we can celebrate that. And we can also exhale. Who among us found a moment of complete exhalation this week. I have to say I did. Many of us felt that victory and wept or danced or celebrated with a glass of really excellent scotch or a flute of sparkling cider, or as I have with a DQ blizzard. Just saying, we all have our ways of celebrating. For years, we've had that 5-year-old frustration, the kind of frustration you had when you were 5 and you were in a car and you were driving someplace that was insanely far away. And you would ask, are we there yet? Are we there yet? We have had that frustration for 4 years, many of us. Friends and colleagues this week have talked about what it was like to sleep through the night again. I'm experiencing that. I hope many of you are too. And I say we deserve these breaths. We deserve this sleep, and we deserve this celebration. I don't know how many of you cried last night watching Kamala Harris take the stage. My goodness, friends, so glad to be in this place. And what has been revealed to us again and again over these years is that the world that we dream can be, is a world that continues to be far distant. Nearly half the votes counted this week have been to maintain the policies and practices of the last 4 years. Policies and practices that have resulted in so much loss and the horrors of children taken from their parents, permanently, possibly taken from their parents. The emboldening of white supremacists, and more than I could possibly recount here. We can pause and have our celebration, but the poet reminds us there is no time off for good behavior. We cannot get comfortable again and slip back into thinking that it's not so bad as the days and months pass. And to be very clear about what I'm saying here, the we in that sentence is white folks, my friends. And we need to be reminded and discover again and again what we've missed because we've become comfortable. I've told the story in church many times, I know, about the decades during which I've forgotten and remembered and forgotten and remembered the truths about systemic racism, just for one example. Many of you know that as a child, I went with my mother to picket for open housing in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. Also went on marches and various other kinds of social justice work when I was a kid. In college, I remember going into a jewelry shop in the small town in Maryland, rural Maryland, where I was in college with my Black roommate. I was there to get a new watch band for my watch, and experienced for the first time a clerk who would not leave us alone, who wouldn't be more than a couple of steps away from Cheryl, my roommate, during the whole time we were in there. When we left the shop, I was raging. I was furious. And Cheryl simply said to me, "Don't worry about it, Linda. It's always like this." But I forgot pretty much as soon as we walked away. In the 1990s, in a room full of hundreds of my ministerial colleagues, I looked around the room in horror when the trainer who was working with us on issues around racism, the trainer asked if there were people in the room who had been stopped more than once in the past year by a police while they were driving. And I looked around the room in horror as every Black person in the room stood up. There were not that many of them at that point. There were only maybe 24, but all of them were standing. All of them were on their feet, and not a single white person stood up. I was outraged, and I forgot once my rage subsided. And then there's always, for all of us, this litany of names that we keep adding to month upon month upon month. Trayvon, Sandra, Philando, Michael, George, Brianna. There are too many to remember, friends. And each time, maybe it doesn't happen for you, each time it fades into the background because we can forget. Now, I could tell you other stories that have that same narrative line. Stories about my awareness, for example, about the damage that we continue to do to our planet, or about the lives of the original inhabitants of this land, this stolen land that we live on. I could tell you about my awareness that lifts and falls, about what happens to disabled people in our country, in our communities. I forget so much, and I wonder if you do too. I suspect you do. This world of ours, this life of ours, will always be in the making. And we know that we can create change when we come together with others, when we keep our eyes on the prize, when we center love and justice, when we listen to the voices from the margins. We can and must be in that work. So that's where infinity and beyond is for all of us, to infinity and beyond for all of us. What we are called to do in this world, the work that is there for our hands to pick up and our hearts to stay open to, will always be with us. I have quipped before that if our task is saving the world, we all have job security for the rest of our lives. And indeed, it is the case. There is no there that will appear out of the midst that will be our final accomplishment, after which we can finally rest. There is only the rest of the way along the path. There is only the celebrations now, as Ashley Nicole reminds us, that fortify us for the backlash that will come, that will come. Be prepared, my friends. Celebrate, but be prepared. As Thomas Centinela reminds us, truly there is no time off for good behavior. There is only what must be saved next, what must be embodied now, where we must turn our gaze, and what we must take up. And as Nancy suggested, wish I'd had this a little earlier, the possibilities really are infinite. We can make change. We can make the world better. As a former president has said, yes, we can. Never forget that either. And now, consult the window for weather. Put on some clothes and good intentions, and we begin again. So may it be. Amen. Please pause and breathe, my friends. Take a moment. I invite you to, if you've had a moment in the service, in the stillness or the words or the lit candles, of joy and sorrow. If there's something that has touched you, I invite you to set your intention for how you will carry that out into the world. Let us pause in stillness. So may it be. Amen. My friends, I leave you with these words from Rachel Kahn, author of our reading for today. I will tell you what she suggests we tell our children. And I tell you because we all need to remember. Your gifts are useful. You are beautiful and beloved. You are the truth. Let us go from this place and make the world that we dream more real, day by day and moment by moment. Amen and blessed be. As Nancy extinguishes the chalice, I invite you to join with me in our words that we speak every week. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace, my friends.